Welcome back to the B2B Marketing Gap podcast with me, Jade. Today we're going to talk about how to get buy-in on your marketing strategy and how to make sure that you're able to actually activate that plan, because if you're anything like me, it is so frustrating when you've spent so much time and effort creating a marketing plan and then you actually feel like you can't implement it. So today we're going to dive into that. This video forms part 6 of my 6-part video series covering the different stages within B2B Breakthrough Academy, my 6-module marketing strategy course. If you don't already know me, I'm B2B Jade. I'm a TikTok influencer. I've got 18 years experience in B2B marketing, and I'm here to share with marketing managers all around the world, just like you, how to finally become strategic, kick imposter syndrome to the curb, and finally get the respect you deserve in your company. First of all, let's talk about the reasons why our marketing plans fail to get off the ground. Because of course, this video is about how to activate your strategy. So it makes sense to start there. The first reason that I see marketing plans failing to get off the ground is when we've got too many things in there. We focused our energies on impressing our leadership with giving them basically a shopping list of cool ideas that we'd gathered and brainstormed, and they're really impressed in that meeting. But actually, when it comes to doing that stuff, we don't have the budget and we don't have the resource to do that. So then we're just sat there going, what should we do? There's too much to focus on. And then we're also bombarded with the tasks on the marketing task wheel. So we kind of just ignore the strategy, get sucked into the tasks that leadership and sales want us to do that aren't strategically linked with the plan. And then we keep telling ourselves, I'll get back to the strategy next week. I'll get back to the strategy next month. And then all of a sudden, an entire year has passed. Another reason that plans fail to get off the ground is when we're using jargon to present them. So if we're trying to sound clever, if we're trying to make it sound like we know more than other people in the room, and this is really common, I've done this myself, where we're talked down to, we're called the colouring in team, and so we think, I need to show my worth here. But the only thing that jargon does is alienate people more. I really encourage people to talk in human language when they're trying to get buy-in to activating their plan. A big one that I see a lot is when we're not selecting good partners, or we're not selecting partners at all. We're trying to do everything ourselves. We're just cutting straight to implementing strategies and tactics. But by not having the specialists to actually help us do that, we end up just doing like a half job on most of the things. So then leaders go, well, that one's not working, that's taking too long. We're not getting the momentum that's needed for those particular strategies or tactics to start to show their worth because things are just too slow and clunky. You often find that the sign-off process can be really tricky. And so if you're aiming to put out, say, 3 pieces of content a month, but you're having to write it, edit it, get sign off, get approval, research, all of those things, you are not making that momentum. And all the while, there's so many other things to do as well. So having agencies is super important. And when you don't have them, or when you have agencies that are not fit for purpose or are not skilled enough for what you need, that is really going to show up in how your marketing plan is activated. I've also found that marketing managers who are asking for budget from leaders without any context within that wider strategy plan is another reason things fall short. So if your new financial year starts on the 1st of April, what often happens is that, say, mid-March, the marketing manager goes to finance and the CEO to say, I need a bigger budget this year. I want to double it because we don't have enough budget to do what you want. And the business is kind of shocked, a bit like if you just put yourself straight into a boiling hot bath, you're like shell shocked and like it just seems really extreme. What we need to do is go through the strategic process so that very much from day one, you've understood from your leaders, tell me what it is you want to achieve. And then I will build a marketing strategy to surround that. We can have a conversation about what resources we're able to allocate. I might encourage us to increase those, but I will only do that in a way that makes financial sense for our business. So there should be no shocks when you're asking for additional budget. And that reminds me, if you are watching this part of the video series and you haven't watched parts 1 through to 5, a lot of this will not make much sense because you've come straight to how to activate a plan, but parts 1 to 5 goes through those steps that you need, including setting a marketing review or conducting a marketing review, setting your marketing budget and objectives, selecting the best marketing strategies, the tactics, and creating your activity plan. and then also creating your reports to measure success, my favorite one. And then this is the final episode. So I really encourage you to go back and watch the other ones. Better yet, you could sign up to join us for our January intake of B2B Breakthrough Academy. I will be live launching the course with a bit of a welcome party and introduction to all my new friends who are enrolled. The class starts on January 14th, 2025, and enrollment is now open. So click the link in the show notes to learn a little bit more about how the course runs and understand why people are joining. Another reason that we're not managing to get our marketing plans off the ground is that we tend to be responding to every women idea that's sent to us. So trying to cram things into a campaign plan just because someone in the business said it would be a good idea. What I really encourage you to do when you're stuck on the task wheel and you have salespeople asking you to include something in the plan is try and get underneath to the root of what it is that they're struggling with. So rather than talking to them about the tactic that they've suggested to you, figure out where this is coming from. If they say, can we advertise on the roundabout near my son's dentist? I genuinely have heard that one. Then you can talk to them about, oh, it sounds like you want your customers and target customers to be more aware of you. Is it accurate that that's what you're aiming to achieve here? Oh yeah, that is actually really what I was thinking, because when I call people, they don't know who we are and I want to raise awareness. I love this idea. I'm with you. I've been thinking the same things. Let's have a chat about how we can build into our marketing strategy better ways for people to become more aware of us. Because I've got some ideas that may even be more cost effective than a roundabout advertising, which is usually more suited to B2C. And that leads on nicely to not getting defensive when people push back on your plans and ideas, just really remaining that objective person in the business who doesn't really mind either way what the business decides to go with. You're flexing your strategic muscles by recommending the best approach. But if they decide they don't want to do that, they don't want to follow your advice, that's okay. You're not going to take it personally. You're going to use that we instead of I language. Like, if we would like to see growth, we will need to do these things, rather than I need budget. I need you to listen to me. I can't do my job without. It just really makes people feel like you're the problem. So terminology like we enables you to kind of separate yourself from any uncomfortable situations like that. Okay, so let's start from the point where you have created your marketing strategy plan. So congratulations if you've been working along this on your own, or I'm excited to see you if you plan to join us in January, or any of our future launches if you're watching us in the future, to get started with your marketing strategy. So step 6 is really going to be about, okay, we've completed a lot of templates, we've seamed them together to make one overall marketing strategy plan, but this plan is quite in depth. It's got a lot of information and it is relevant to us. There's no silly models in there, there's no jargon, it all makes perfect sense to us as marketers. But I have a feeling that your CEO isn't going to want to sit through a meeting where you present that entire plan. What we need to do at this point is figure out, now that we've done the hard work, how are we going to be an internal salesperson to get the business behind us on this? Now, again, if you have watched parts 1 to 5 of this video series, you'll have heard me talk a lot about having meetings along the way. And in fact, in the course program, which is 13 weeks, we have a calendar to suggest when meetings should be set up, to talk about things like budget, to talk about business goals, to present the plan. And these should all be booked in advance over the 13 weeks that you're preparing your marketing strategy. By this point, you actually should have had quite a few check-ins with leadership so they understand what's coming. What you don't want to do is that, like the week before you plan to take your activity plan and make it real, that you're just bombarding them with things, because it will make sense to you in terms of context, but they'll just be like, what is this? Where did it come from? So your leaders should know what's coming next at every point in the creation of your marketing strategy, and everything that you have built is based and comes from them. So when it comes to actually presenting that strategy plan, there should be no surprises. But like I was saying, you don't want to be presenting this like 40-page document that's really heavy in terms of the marketing. You may, when you've finished presenting your simpler strategy plan, want to give them a print off of the fuller piece so that they can really dig in and look. And any questions, you can say, hey, have a look at page 12. I do go into that in a bit more detail. I talk about our audience, what they care about, what they need from us. And that's all covered in there. But I really recommend, if you're going to do that, only give it to them at the end, because in my experience, I've done this before. I'm trying to present and people are flicking to the back of the plan to look at the strategies and budget and going, how did you come up with this? That's a bit much. And you're like, I'm going to get to it, so only give it to them at the end. So how do we go from this big hefty document that you've made to a simple to follow marketing plan presentation? Well, there is a template within my course that gives you like all the blanks to fill in that ties up seamlessly with your marketing plan presentation. But if you're going to be doing this on your own and just following the guidance in these videos, you're just going to need to make a really simple Canva presentation or PowerPoint, whatever you use, and pull out the key points. Remind them what they told you they want to achieve as a business. Remind them of any insights from your review that are really important. Remind them of the challenges so that you're setting the scene and really triggering their understanding of what you've already talked about, because it could have been a couple of months before since you've spoken about this and they're going to be needing a little refresh. So think of it as a sales pitch. Just want to recap. This is what we talked about. This is what you need. This is what you want. Here's the mission. Here's the vision. Here's the goals. Here's what stands in our way. Here's what marketing's done in the past. Here's the challenges we face. Here's who our customers are and what they care about, what they want. Here's why we're better than our competitors with our positioning. Here's what our competitors are saying and doing. Here's a bit of a review on the systems and tech that we don't have that we need. Let's recap on budget. We were spending X percent of sales revenue. We're recommending we spend this percent. So this plan is based on that. Oh, this is making me feel like I want to make a strategy and present it to someone now. It's really fun. And then going through, okay, here's our objectives. Just as a reminder, they connect directly with your business focus areas as you gave me. And just want to check in with you that those are still accurate, because they bloody better be, because I'm not doing this again. And then here's how we want to allocate our budget. Here's our strategies, tactics, on and on and on. So that should be, I think the template within the course is maybe like 20 slides, maybe something like that. And I suggest that long before you need to activate this plan, so like a few weeks before, you have got a meeting in the diary with the CEO and anyone else to go through that plan. You're then going to want to give maybe a week for them to digest it by giving them a copy, come back with any thoughts, maybe have a follow-up meeting to understand where they're at, answer any field questions. And that brings me nicely to my point that you really need to know this plan inside out. You need to be really confident in it. And again, a lot of the students in B2B Breakthrough Academy, they've done kind of like role playing with each other in little mini accountability groups to understand, well, what likely objections am I going to get from leaders? Like, what can I say? I'm a bit insecure about this particular strategy. I'm not sure I'm familiar with it enough. What would you do in this situation? And asking me as well, I can always give that advice and guidance. And it just gives you that confidence to make sure that, okay, I know that anything they ask me, I'm either going to be really clued up on it, or I know it's not my area of specialism, and I'm going to tell them, that's a great question. Here's my initial thinking. I'm going to go and speak to the specialist who I've been consulting on with this, who would be activating that part of our plan. And I'm going to come back to you in a couple of days with a really solid answer, because what I don't want to do is give you information that later turns out to not be realistic or correct. You're going to get so much respect in your company by fielding questions in this way, as opposed to waffling, using jargon, trying to get through the questions like it's an interview. Once your self-worth as a marketer is higher and you know that I'm a generalist marketer, it's okay if I haven't done things before, it's okay if I don't know the answer to everything, you're going to feel so much better about saying, I don't actually know the answer to that question, but I am going to find out for you. I also recommend that before your marketing strategy presentation, if there's been quite a gap between when you last spoke to your leaders about what they need to achieve as a business, I would recommend that you keep checking in with them every few weeks just to reiterate, this is what I'm building the plan around. Here's what you can expect when we have our marketing strategy presentation meeting. I'll need this amount of time from you. The format will be this. I will take questions as well, so that they're arriving at that meeting. They know what it's about. They know what you're going to cover. They pretty much already know the budget you're recommending because you've already had that conversation. They've already briefed you on what they want. So you shouldn't get any curveballs. A few of the students in B2B Breakthrough Academy who have now graduated have talked to each other about the difficulties when it comes to things like, during that meeting, the goalposts being changed. Oh, we've decided we're doing something completely different now. And you will always have to tweak and adapt a little bit. But I think it's really important to make sure that in the early stages, you're focusing on the big picture of the business, not like individual service launches, but more, where do we see ourselves in the future? What do we need to get there? And then later on, small tweaks like which service is being promoted or how they want to go to market is not really going to affect your overall marketing strategy. And a couple of other things to think about when it comes to activating your marketing plan is just being really comfortable that you haven't picked too many things. So before you present your strategy to leadership, really sit down and think, when am I actually working on these things? Who is doing it in the team? Do I need to grow my team? Do I have the agency partners there ready to go? Or have I not found someone I can trust yet? And spend your time making sure that you can definitely deliver on what you're suggesting. I always think it's a really nice way to build like a bit of a trust and a relationship with leaders. If you can flip the marketing on its head and say, do you know what, guys? The reason it hasn't been working is we're doing too much. And my presentation today is going to be about less is more. We are going to do a couple of things really, really well. I've got absolute experts behind me. We're going to shake things up. We're going to do it different. And we're going to finally turn things around. So let's imagine we are presenting the marketing strategy. How do we handle any pushback that we get from salespeople, because we know they like to do that, and leaders, maybe CEOs who have a set idea in their head about how things are going to be? How can we respectfully and professionally say no and push back without damaging our relationship? I recommend writing down any objections you're likely to receive. When you're creating your marketing plan, you're going to know the ones that your team are going to love and be like, yes, let's do it. And you're going to know the ones that they'll be thinking, we don't need to do that. CRM is always the one that comes up. When people want a new system, they want to invest in data cleaning and tidying up and segmenting and all these nice things. Typically, the business doesn't see its value. So what you want to do is write down the objection and come up with some really solid arguments in advance as to why this is so important in line with what they want to achieve as a business. And then you'll be more equipped to handle that in the moment. You won't feel like there's any curveballs coming at you. You're like, I thought you were going to say that, and I have been thinking about it. This is something I do in all walks of life. If I recommend something to someone like a friend, something they could do for their business or a solution with their parenting, they sometimes think I've just like thought of it off the top of my head. I will have thought about it for weeks before I suggest, why don't you do this? Because I've already thought of all the different options, all the things that they're probably going to say in response. I've predicted that. I've scenario built on how I will talk to them about that. And it's just my way, like it happens all the time, of validating what it is that I'm suggesting, and it's genuinely come from a place of like deep care for what they're doing in their business or their life and wanting to make sure that my advice is really solid. And so typically I have already thought, so if they come back with, yeah, but this, I'm like, I thought about that. Here's why that's not going to be an issue. And if you do that in your suggestions, you're going to be really like bulletproof. And yeah, there may be an instance where you're caught off guard. But again, you can always go back to, oh, that is a really interesting point. I'm so glad you raised it. Let me go away and have a look at that one. I'm going to come back to you. And that is just a great way as well to validate the person coming forward with the objection. You're not being defensive. You're like, oh, great point. Thank you for bringing that up. I have not thought about that. I'm so glad that you did. And that leads me nicely to practice your pitch. I used to have my husband sitting on our sofa and I would put a presentation on our TV screen and I would make him role play with me on like practicing the presentation, whatever I was going to deliver. And I would, encourage him to be a character, like pushing back, coming up with like reasons why what I've done is not good. And I would get really mad and be like, why are you doing this? But it was really valuable because it helped me to deal with questions that because he's not a marketer, he would think of things that maybe a sales rep would think of. And it would just help me to practice how I was going to do that. And so if you can find yourself maybe another marketer, it's similar to you, and maybe do some role playing, accountability check-ins, bounce ideas off them to present your plan in advance. Or maybe there's someone in your team you could do that with, or a family member. That's just going to get you really solid. They will give you feedback like, oh, you spent a bit of a long time in the introduction stage. I would just scoot on. One little tip I have for presenting is try not to ask whether it's okay to move on to the next slide. So a lot of the time people, they kind of like in a cowering position as if they're less than the people in the audience. You're presenting, so you're the leader in that moment. And you want to take someone through the content of the slides. you want to pause and look around. If it seems like someone has something they want to bring up, you can, if it's at a relevant point, you can say, would anyone like to ask any questions about this part of the content? And if no one does, you can move on. If you don't want to ask questions at that point, unless someone dives at you, just confidently move on to your next slide. Leave a few seconds pause, because I think it helps people to digest the slide, but try not to say, is it okay if we move to the next slide now? Everyone okay with that? No, just move on. If someone has a real lack of understanding, they will come forward. Try not to digress. Try and keep your conversation on the strategy, because it's likely you've got an hour to 2 hours to present this. What you want to do at the start is say to them, we have 1 hour, so I'm going to spend the first 40 minutes taking you through the marketing strategy. If anything comes up that we really need to talk about in the moment, we can dive into it there. But ideally, if we can have the last 20 to 40 minutes talking about the questions, then we can do that. And then we've got the rest of the time to really decide what our next steps are going to be. And this is really common when you're presenting the strategies part, people tend to go off on a tangent for quite a long time, talking about different strategies. I say let them have a few minutes, like don't be too strict. But if it's starting to go too far in a wrong direction, remind them why you selected the strategies you did. Try and encourage them not to offer to bring in additional ones because of resourcing issues, and then try and move on to the next step. You may also find that part of activating your strategy is that you need to build a team. So maybe you need to employ more people. I do have a section on this within B2B Breakthrough Academy, because we can't cover everything. But what I will say is try not to hire people before you've agreed what your strategic approach is going to be and how those job descriptions will directly tie in with your marketing strategy. It's so important to make sure that the roles of the people joining is connected with what needs to get done, so that you have the right people in the right seats on the bus. And the bus just represents the strategy, and the direction of that bus is where we're going. Are you on the bus? Are you off the bus? Are you in the right seat? This is where we're going. And that is also how you can manage a team is, people can be lovely people. You can be a lovely manager who treats people with respect, but ultimately, we're here and we're going there. Are you on the bus? Are you joining us? That's where we're going. This is what's required. Oh, you're getting off the bus. Okay. Do you want to come back on the bus? Or is this not feeling like the right bus for you? As much as you're an awesome person and we love you, this is what we're doing. So we need to stay on the bus. I actually feel like this step could be the most important part of your B2B breakthrough, of your journey from going from a non-strategic marketer who is treated like a doormat, who is just doing hundreds of tasks for the sales team, who is not respected, who is talked down to, who is called the colouring in team over and over and over, who, if you're anything like me, is maybe going home, eating a bowl of pasta, feeling really sad, not enjoying their job, forgetting why they got into marketing in the first place. And I think this is the part where you really can claim back that power. And I don't mean power in an ego way. I mean power in that self-assured, centered feeling that you get when you're good at something and you want people's approval, but you don't need it because and you're validated internally yourself. And this is just such a transformative piece that my BBA graduates have felt and experienced, is that, wow, I've done so much work internally building myself up as a strong player, as a marketer. And I really want my company to see the value in this work that I've done. But even if they don't, I'm still just so happy that I am now a strategic marketer. So if you've been following along this journey with us in this 6-part series, thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed creating it and providing it to you. And just to put it out there, I was meant to sell this this series, because now that I've done it, I'm there's quite a lot of value in this. And I just hope that people who maybe don't have the funds to join B2B Breakthrough Academy or are not in a position where they're ready right now, I just hope that it's helping my mission to make marketers more strategic anyway. So if you're working along in isolation and maybe that's more tricky than taking a course and joining our group, that is absolutely fine. I'm so happy. And if you do have questions or if you get stuck anywhere, just drop me a message on any of my social platforms or by email. And I'm always happy to hear from you, because I just want you to have the skills and the confidence that I didn't have when I was a marketing manager. As a reminder, class starts for our next intake of B2B Breakthrough Academy on the 13th of January 2025. Enrollment is now open, depending on when you're watching this video. If you're watching this well into the future, you may need to check when our latest launch is, or simply join our independent learning course. But yeah, we're getting together, our welcome party. will be on January 14th, 2025. I cannot wait to get everyone together. It's been a year since I live launched the course. Since then, people have been just independently enrolling and going through the program, but I really missed you guys, and I just want to hang out with you, answer your questions, see new connections form. There are so many friendships that have been built off the back of the first round of B2B Breakthrough Academy, people who've made lifelong friends, people who are supporting each other, and it's been so gorgeous to see people a year on having delivered on their strategies and now moving into year 2 where they're reviewing and refining their strategy from last year, and just seeing how massive their mindset shift is. We've had a couple of people whose budget was reduced this year due to various factors, and their mindset is just so much more positive about it. And I just love to see that long-term B2B breakthrough, because I built this course to be what I would have wanted when I was a stuck marketing manager. It wasn't about helping your business get results, although that is a lovely byproduct. This course is about how to make you the marketer you know is inside you and become the person that you wanted to be when you first were attracted to marketing in the first place. So let's get excited about it again. Let's remember who we are. Let's not let our colleagues bring us down anymore. Let's see that that's a them problem and that we have got an amazing, exciting marketing career ahead. Please check in for my next episode. I'm going to be talking about some really fun concepts, including things like my predictions for 2025 marketing trends. It's going to be a little bit different than how a lot of people talk about trends, because in reality, I kind of know that trends don't always come to life. We've got to focus on those basics, but I will still share the things that I'm excited about and what is possible in 2025. Please like and subscribe to my channel. I would love a comment if you've enjoyed this series, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much. That was really fun.